With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu. At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, the USA Today NFL wire site that covers, of course, Arizona Cardinals. With me recording episode 664. Apparently, I was 10 off on my last show when I did the solo show about the CardsWire and the credentialing. But with me in this show is Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site, my co-host for the last gazillion years, as we record episode 664, Seth. It is official. The Cardinals are done with the offseason program. We're recording on a Thursday afternoon. Minicamp has ended, and the players are off, minus the rookies for a little bit, until training camp, which Jonathan Cannon said would be July 22nd. It's not going to be July 22nd. And that will probably when rookies report, but July 25th, I think, is the earliest that they can actually have their report date.
Yeah, and it's going to be one of those things, like you said. It's going to be rookies. It's going to be injured players. Even though he's been out there, maybe Jonah Williams, right? Like, doubtful though, as much as he participated. And things of that nature. Like, that's who will come in on the 22nd, and then, like you said, everybody else will meander their way in on the 25th, and so on and so on. And then we'll get into the real deal. Probably the
26th will probably that, and it was kind of nice because it falls on a Friday. That first their report date, so they'll do the run test on Friday. They'll probably have their first practice on Saturday. So, and that'll probably be back together weekend like the league does. And so fans will get to be in State Farm Stadium starting that Saturday and Sunday. And then we'll go from there. We'll keep an eye out in the announcements on the internet, emails, all the websites, Revenge of the Birds, CardsWire, as we will post that information as soon as it comes out. When it comes to training camp practices, which ones are open, what's the schedule, and how to get those free digital tickets. Now, what we want to talk about in this episode are our takeaways from minicamp. And there aren't a ton of things because we did have some commentary, but reporters can't talk about what they saw in practice outside of the first 20 minutes, although we are able to, between pictures and videos on the internet that the Cardinals put out and things that are said in the press conferences. Jonathan Gannon spoke all 3 days. Kyler Murray, Josh Sweat, Calais Campbell, Greg Dortch, Hilda Froholt, a bunch of guys talked over the last few days. Based on just the 3 days of stuff that there's been this week, Seth, what were your biggest takeaways from the week?
I mean, the first thing I think we have to discuss is that everybody showed up. So that was kind of our last episode, right? Like, yeah, it's voluntary, but I don't want to say surprised, but I think we were, I guess maybe surprised a little bit, right? Like that guys that had just signed, specifically Dalvin Tomlinson, Josh Sweat, maybe even a little bit Calais Campbell. We were a little bit surprised that they, no showed voluntary workouts. And it's not to say that, Calais Campbell needs to be at voluntary workouts. Like, this dude's been around longer than most of the coaching staff has been coaching, right? Like, this is, it's not his first or second or third rodeo. Like, he's done everything. But at the same time, it's a new system. He's learning things of, little nuanced things like that. So to see everybody there, and then mostly everybody participating, right? Like, mostly everybody participating, something we'll discuss in a second.
Yeah.
I think those were the, kind of biggest positives in the situation.
Well, and for me, the biggest takeaway from minicamp was just how non-eventful this offseason overall. Like, the whole offseason program, there's nothing. We're making stuff up. We're just taking quotes and we're turning it into a story, even though the quotes say nothing right now. Nothing is happening. There's no insight because, the one thing which, and I'm referring to my last episode when I talked about how, Howard and I lost our media access and kind of how the Cardinals have handled things. It used to be just a few years ago where all 3 minicamp practices were 100% open to the media for the Cardinals. We saw a report that came out of Washington that Noah Brown of the Commanders went down, was carted off the field. And my guess is that would not have happened in that first 20 minutes of stretching and things like that, if it had happened here, that it wouldn't have been able to be reported on because it happened in the closed portion of practice. And so we don't get a whole lot. We don't, like, other than a few highlights that the Cardinals post on social media, years past, we might have a reporter tracking, how many completions out of how many did Kyler have, and who caught passes, who dropped passes, who was playing with this unit and who's playing with that unit. You don't get that. And so all we have is participation and also words from the press conferences.
Well, and you look back, right, and one of the things that's been interesting, and you and I are not necessarily, we don't buy into the 7-on-7 on-air stats, right? Like, I know that's been a little bit of an interesting thing that's happening amongst other teams, right? Like, they're posting, especially like the Browns right now, posting daily about quarterback stats. And, right now, people are like, oh, Shadur's winning. And you're like, well, what is he winning? The underwear battle, right? And don't get me wrong, like, it's entertaining. And especially when you are talking about quarterback competitions, thank God we haven't had to deal with one of those in forever. It gives you something to discuss in the off season, and it can draw some clicks. But realistically, I mean, we saw Clayton Tune throw an interception. They posted that, and isn't that the selective editing or propaganda that we would expect, right? Like, you're not going to let Kyler throw an interception and highlight that. You're probably not going to let Jacoby throw one. So poor Clayton Tune, who, congratulations on the engagement. You gotta take one for the team, so to speak, and you got to be the guy that throws the interception and team period and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just little stuff like that. But like we said too, man, this is a interesting town where they have these options, right? And you text me about this the other day, and it's like, you could have asked some questions coming out of camp or coming into camp, right? Like, you mentioned Josh Sweat, and they had mentioned he was a little banged up.
Well, they didn't say that. It's just Jonathan Gannon mentioned a handful of players that they're going to be smart with and take it easy. And the two questions were, like, you knew about other guys because some of those were coming off injuries. Will Johnson, he's had a number of injuries. He had a hamstring injury in the pre-draft process. But when they mentioned Dalvin Tomlinson and Josh Sweat, and you're like, wait, what? What? Why? And Gannon won't talk about injuries. And then Josh Sweat got up to the podium, and nobody asked, so, hey, and like Gannon said that they're managing your workload. Did you tweak something, or is it just that where you're at in your career? You could have cleared that up. But and the same thing, Tomlinson also, and nobody asked him either. It's just an interesting thing that they're afraid, everyone's afraid of asking about injuries when those are just, in this media, nobody's out for a gotcha. Nobody here, like pretty much everyone, we're not out here for a gotcha. We're just trying to understand. And I think when it comes to injuries, like something that you tweak in off-season work, okay. So yeah, you take that easy, but just the circuitous route that the Cardinals take with injury information in the offseason, just like, what in the world? Why?
Yeah, and so that's, but the other thing is that's been nice about the Cardinals this year is Sands, their second round draft pick, who has been in attendance, so we can't say anything negative. There's no contract issues, and I don't even want to say there's a contract issue with Will Johnson, right? Like they just haven't finished the dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's yet, and he's, unlike Shamar Stewart, he's been out there, been a participant, done all of those things. But
that's been fun in our group chats, is what is going on in Cincinnati.
Right. Well, and that's the thing that used to be going on in Arizona all the time. And I did think, I know we'll talk about it maybe another time, but like I did think there were some interesting comments made. I thought Calais' comment was super interesting today about, or maybe it was yesterday, I don't remember when, but it was, I never wanted to leave, right? Like, and you look back and you go, yeah, they drafted Robert Kimdiche, but like most GMs would have been like, man, Calais, and coming off that year, and we're so close. Yeah, let's bring him back again. And instead it was like, all right, well, Kimdiche hasn't done anything, but we drafted him, so good luck, Calais. And it was like, so like those are interesting comments that, maybe we can delve into later and stuff. But yeah, it's odd for the Arizona Cardinals specifically to have like a standard off season.
Yeah, it's been nice. Like, what didn't we have a little bidwill nonsense early in the off season?
Yeah, more lawsuits, more.
Those happen. Those are every year now. So
well, and to be fair, apparently it just is owning an Arizona sports franchise, right? Because now we, everybody was like, oh, Robert Sarver, the devil's gone, and now it's like Matt Ishbia is the devil himself as well, and you're like, wait a second.
And now it's Bartelstein's having an affair with a WNBA player.
Yeah, it's just like, how can we not be normal for 1 minute? Like, can we just not? So yeah, the Cardinals are being normal, so that's kind of
no contract issues. Everyone's happy. And if there are contract issues, no one's talking about them. So let's move on to the first real topic, and that is the Will Johnson situation. One, he doesn't have his contract yet. I'm not worried about that. But the fact that he was among the players that they named going to take it easy. Now, he did get work on Tuesday. He did get work on Thursday, but he was on the sideline on Wednesday, and he had a tight hamstring. So the question is, how concerned are you about Will Johnson and his health?
Not really. I was texting you guys about it a little bit today. Like, the reality of the mini camp is, right, and specifically a second round pick who doesn't get the fully guaranteed contracts like the first round picks, especially a guy that, going into the 2024 college football season, so the 2025 NFL draft season, was looked at as a consensus top 10 pick, and then he's a consensus first rounder. And again, typically that means what? A fully guaranteed contract. And now you're talking about a guy that falls due to injury concerns and injury reports and this and that and the other. And so to me, I'll be concerned when he's missing practices in September. to me, like, it's one of those situations where he's out there, he is participating, he's not going full go. And I talked to my buddy that's a physical therapist a little bit, and I was just like, seems odd, right? Like late March, this dude tweaks a hamstring in preparation, and now it's basically 3 months later, not quite, about 8 weeks later. And he's like, though, like, he probably just got cleared. If it was a tear, he's like, he probably just got cleared maybe a week or two ago. So it's mini camp, like, do the drills, do the stuff, just stay out of one-on-ones. And again, I hate always going back to my experiences with coaching, but we had a kid coming off an injury, and he was cleared, and that was kind of what it was. It was like, hey, let's do the drills, do stuff that you can control your movements and what you're doing. But like, if you go in lives, or especially one-on-ones, one of the things you can't control is what as a defensive back, is what the opposition's doing. So if they move in a specific way, and you're trying to react, like, that's when those like lingering issues can happen. And so, like, if that's what it is, and it's like, I don't have my guarantees, and I'm 2 weeks, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks cleared, and I'm just getting back into football shape, it all makes sense to me. Like, again, he's there, like, he's there and participating. It's not like he's just on the sideline tossing the ball around. He's at least doing stuff. It's just, it's it goes to the concerns that some fans had about drafting him at 16. And so now for some people it's an immediate, like, see just and you're like, well, okay, let's, like, maybe you're right, there's a 100% chance that people are right about that, but I wouldn't say this is a reason why.
Yeah, and that makes sense, especially, and with a hamstring. Like, why would you, like, if there's any discomfort at all, why at this point would you have him push through it? This is the dumb time of year to do that. One, he doesn't have his contract yet. This is off-season work. You don't have pads on. Just let your body get healed. But I will say this: it is the one thing I have in the back of my mind is while people were talking about the potential degenerative issue with his knee, the fact of the matter is, since 2022, it's been a knee injury, a shoulder injury, a foot injury, and then soft tissue, the hamstring injury in March, which is now, it might simply have been, tightness, as in, okay, it's not bad, we just don't want to overdo it. So it doesn't mean, like, the fact that he only missed one practice this week, and it was the middle practice, tells you that it was, let's just hold off on that a little bit. But that I will be honest, that is something I'm going to have in the back of my mind about him, because the talent is definitely there. But is he going to be one of these guys that, Jair Alexander dealt with that the last couple of years. He just, like, over the last 3 years, he's missed a ton of games. He missed 10 games each of the last two seasons. And we know when he's healthy, he's fantastic. But staying on the field is a struggle. Now, when you're paying your cornerback rookie contract money and it's the second round, you don't feel nearly as worried about it, especially with the depth that they have. So I also am not concerned about the injury per se, except for the pattern. Like, training camp rolls around. So in July and August, if he's still off and on, you worry about that. Like, if we go back 2 years, BJ Jalari, he had the minor knee issue that kept him out of the offseason work. He missed a lot of training camp time, and then it took him about half a season before they worked him into the rotation. And so what we want to see, obviously, is Johnson participating more so that he can contribute early, to where potentially he's in the starting lineup, because that would be fun to see. But with that, coming up next on the Rise of Seahawks podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's talk about an offensive lineman that seems to be in position to handle Will Hernandez's spot. That's coming in next on Rise of Sea Red.
Welcome to Popcorn Psychology, the podcast where licensed therapists dive deep into your favorite movies. From trauma and grief to identity and attachment, we unpack it all through the lens of cinema. Whether you're a mental health professional or just a movie lover, join us every other week for a mix of clinical insight and pop culture fun.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
We're back on the Res is Here podcast, the best our Cardinals talk on the web. We don't know rotations, but I think we know who is in the lead, at least right now. And it appears that Isaiah Adams is the guy that they've got penciled in, at least for now, at right guard. We can't say 100%, but based on comments from Jonathan Gannon, Yilda Froholt, and based on it just makes sense. But Isaiah Adams has been the guy that's been playing next to Yilda Froholt at right guard with first-team reps at least some of the time. And if there's anything that we've known for the last 2 years is that the Cardinals have actively tried to get their first-team offensive line set, more or less, from the offseason program, so that they're getting as many chemistry reps and things like that. They can work together, things like and that goes back to last season. So it goes back to 2023 when left guard was a question, and it was Elijah Wilkinson getting reps in OTAs and minicamp, who ended up being the starter there most of the time. Elijah Wilkinson. Last year when they signed Evan Brown, the question is, well, why did they sign Evan Brown? Is he to take over for Yilda? Is he to compete at guard? Oh, no, starting left guard. That's where he was from the offseason program. And now it appears that that's Isaiah Adams, a year after being drafted in the 3rd round. He finished the year starting 5 games. He is in the driver's seat for now to be that right guard. And I guess, Seth, that's probably the best case scenario based on the roster, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you want guys, especially top 3 round guys, and then anything you get after that is just gravy. But you want those guys to compete and play, and that's been a thing that we've discussed, especially with the offensive line. Right now, we have also discussed the fact that they really have not, prior to the hiring of Monty Ossenfort, invested in the offensive line early, outside of Jonathan Cooper and then DJ Humphreys. It was always those day 3 guys, and things like that. But, for Adams, if he can be a guy that is a above average to good starter, that's just, that's exactly what you need from round 3 rookies. And the reality becomes, everybody says like, oh, well, you need 5 all pros on the offensive line to have a great offensive line. It's like, yeah, that would be ideal, right? Like that would be great, but that just doesn't happen. So like, let's just see this team have a solid offensive line, that plays well together and can play at a high level. And that's more than anything what you're looking for. And obviously the gold standard of offensive linemen are the Philadelphia Eagles, right? And you look at some of them. You've got Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, and Lane Johnson, all kind of like those all Pro Bowl level guys. So that makes them great. And what it does too is it allows other guys to work their way in or become, get better as they progress. And truthfully, it's hard to get 3 guys that good because it's hard to pay those guys, right? Like it's hard to keep guys. I mean, you look at how much money the Eagles have spent on their offensive line, and it's they're worldly. And so that's why they'll draft a Landon Dickerson in 2022, I believe it was, or 2021, and then come back and draft Cam Jurgens in 2022. And things like that, whereas the Cardinals have not done that, right? And so now it's kind of what we've talked about under the Austin Fort era altogether. They're trying to correct for bad decisions previously, and they're doing it in a very kind of responsible manner, right? Like it's not like they were like, okay, we're just going to draft offensive linemen in year 1, and then in year 2 we're just going to draft wide receivers and DBs, and then in year 3 we're going to draft all defense. It's like no, we're gonna invest in different positions and try to get reasonable free agents, and you think about the guys they've been able to get, right? Obviously Yelda Froholt being the biggest one, but Evan Brown was not bad last year. And so guys like that, and those are the ones that you need. Now the Cardinals do lack, obviously, like I said, that next guy, because if you consider PJJ, Paris Johnson, the closest to being a Pro Bowl level player, well, again, the Eagles have 2 more. And so, they can bring in a guy like Mekhi Becton on a 1-year prove it deal, and he plays out of his mind. And then, they go, okay, see ya. Good job. Thanks for being a really good player for us. Go get paid somewhere else, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out wherever. And that's what great teams are able to do. And the Cardinals are still, truthfully, as we know, they're still trying to figure out how to do that. And Isaiah Adams being a Mekhi Becton level starter, so good, not great, not a Pro Bowl level guy, but being a good starter, it would be huge to get that from him, because then you're talking about 2 homegrown offensive linemen that could be, stalwarts. And then, and we know Yelda is the guy, so there's no question there. So then, and we know Evans the guy this year at left guard, but then you can start to look at like, hey, next year, and don't even know if there is a guard that's good, but like, hey, next year, we're drafting in the early to mid 20s. Let's pull the trigger on a guard or right tackle type, stuff like that. That's the ideal thing.
Yes, and while the Cardinals still have not assigned jersey number 76, which means I believe that the door is open for potentially Will Hernandez coming back, that if Adams can play at a relatively high level or an average level, the fact that you get a 3rd rounder and he's starting in year 2, which means he could be starting in year 3, then starting in year 4, and then maybe sign him to a long-term, that those are really good things. This is the way teams should build. Like you get a guy on day 2, day 3, and he can develop into something. That's kind of your best case scenario with the 3rd round pick.
But also you can say it, Jess, that's how good teams do things.
That is how good things do things.
Like
back when the Cardinals were good, that's like if you went to their Super Bowl run, that's what happened. Like they had Calais Campbell on the roster as a rookie who played basically nothing on their Super Bowl run, and then they let guys go.
Right, and that's what good teams are able to do. And so you look at where they're at right now and they're not there, and that's okay. Like we've said all along, like they're progressing in the right direction, and obviously there are guys that are irreplaceable. We can look at what the Detroit Lions have done. I mean, you're talking about one of the, if not the best, run franchises over the last 3-4 years, and then they lose Frank Ragnow, who's potentially the best center in the NFL. And he retires. But you look at what they've done, right? Like the Penei Sewell, obviously they drafted. Taylor Decker is kind of the sage veteran from the previous regimes. But Graham Glasgow's was there for a hot minute and then is back there. Like that's what those teams do, is they have typically 3, sometimes only 2, but typically 3 guys that they've drafted and been able to, and then it's just, piecing together the other 2. And that's what's, like you said, been missing for the Cardinals. I mean, don't get us wrong. DJ Humphries obviously was very good in his time and especially in his prime. But the problem becomes, to Jess's point, of team building, especially when you look at rosters and things like that, right? It always plays itself out that if every hole has to be filled with a free agent, you're in trouble. And you go to the Cardinals 2016 season, right? And that was the team that was supposed to be the best. I'm not going to say they were the best, but they were supposed to be the best. And they had 2 guys they drafted as starters, and Earl Watford was just okay. Like he was a very replaceable player, and I think he only started 10 games that year. And so realistically, it was like DJ. And then, you go, okay, well, that's okay. We'll run it back next year. And then the next year, they had 3 new starters along the offensive line. And again, only one of them was a draft pick. Obviously, Humphries was still there, so technically 2 draft picks, but it was only 1 addition by the draft. And so, like, when you're always filling those gaps with free agency, what ends up happening is you don't build that cohesion. And offensive line play especially is just so much about understanding what the guy next to you is going to do consistently and trusting that they're going to do their job and you can go do your job. And that was just missing, and it quite frankly always has been missing with this Arizona Cardinals. For whatever reason, whether it's drafting ability, development ability, wherever you want to place the blame, that's always been an issue. And so they're trying. We can't say they're succeeding yet, let's be honest, but they're trying, and that's, to you and I, that's a breath of fresh air.
Coming up next to the Res of Series podcast, the best our Cardinals talk on the web. Let's talk about Kyler Murray and what he said. There's some fun stuff that's coming next on Res of Series.
Welcome to Popcorn Psychology, the podcast where licensed therapists dive deep into your favorite movies. From trauma and grief to identity and attachment, we unpack it all through the lens of cinema. Whether you're a mental health professional or just a movie lover, join us every other week for a mix of clinical insight and pop culture fun.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you could go big time on a fancy water bottle with ultra titanium alloy metal. You're not sure why you need all that. I mean, it just holds water, but you're getting it anyway. Because if you're hiking near an active volcano and you accidentally drop the bottle into molten lava, your water will still be icy cold. Switch to Progressive and you could save big time for water bottles. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
We're back on the Rise of Series podcast, the best our Cardinals talk on the web. Kyler Murray spoke to the media and entering year 7, going to turn 28 in training camp, coming off of, it was an okay but disappointing end of the season. And he said what we always hear. He feels great. He feels better than, this is the time of year where everyone's in the best shape of their life. When training camp comes, I'm in the best shape of my life. I feel great physically. I feel great mentally, blah, 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 blah. But what is he expecting? He says he's entering his prime, and he's looking for rings, bowls, rings, which is fantastic. Is he setting himself up for some more fan disappointment? Because if there's one guy on this roster that does it for Cardinals fans one way or the other, it is Kyler Murray.
That's the life, right, of a quarterback, and it's one of those things too. I always go back to something you and I've talked about kind of a lot, and that's where are you getting somebody better? And people will be like, well, why not take a swing? Have you looked at all the swings around here? Like,
good luck, Seattle and Sam Darnold. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, look, I don't think you and I are like, hey, he's a top 5 quarterback. Like, he's a guy, but like, is he a Jared Goff level player? Absolutely. Right. Like, and yeah, maybe at the end of the day, Goff is what's holding that Lions team back. I would wager to say last year was not Jared Goff, even though, he obviously did not help the situation in that Washington game. I would say it was the cavalcade of injuries that made their
that defense.
Yeah,
when Zeke Turner was playing starter reps for we know Zeke Turner, great special teams player. You don't want him starting.
Yeah, and so to me, that's kind of what you look at. And so another way to look at it or something of that nature is, can you upgrade, and where does that upgrade come from, and how does that upgrade come? And so, we're talking about development and building and those type of things, right? When you look at Kyler and those things, how would the team's development change if you made a move at quarterback? And so, for instance, my first question would be like, all right, if you in the last couple of years, when you did have a chance to draft highly, right? And so 2024, you can take Michael Penix or JJ McCarthy. 2023, you have the ability to potentially draft Anthony Richardson or somebody of that nature. Like, is that an upgrade? Like, can you be like, oh, that guy makes the difference? And then on the flip side too is, right, like, okay, so say you go, okay, well, trade up for CJ Stroud, right? Like, let's take the guy that's been the best and then trade up for, okay, so who are you giving up, right? So now you have no Paris Johnson, and then you probably don't have, at least in this scenario, Darius Robinson and probably Max Melton, right? And potentially you don't have Marvin Harrison Jr. And so that's where the questions come in to me. One of the things that Detroit did that was so smart, and you can see the Cardinals kind of using that. Obviously Dave Sears in the building, things of that nature. You can see the Cardinals using that blueprint, was instead of going like, hey, we got to go get this guy or that guy or whoever, they're like, no, we're gonna build around the strengths of Jared Goff. That's what you do. And so to me, you look at it and you go, okay, well, there's no clear upgrade available. Like, there's no like, hey, we can go get this guy, right? And be better immediately. So there's no Matthew Stafford when the Rams made the move from Goff, right? So if that's not available, then you continue to kind of do what they're doing, and that makes sense to me. I mean, when you talk about team building, one of the things you talk about is that everybody's on the same page. That's something that I feel like is happening here. And I feel like it's a harmonious thing, and everybody really is on the same page for the first time in a while. I mean, I would say back to probably BA, and quite frankly, if we're talking truthfully, probably back to like 2015.
Yeah, it's true. But the interesting thing about Kyler, I wouldn't say he's still a developing quarterback. He's not developing, but has he had some bad situations? Like, did he get on the right path? He was ascending 2019, 2020, 2021. That's exactly what we wanted to see. 2022 was a bad year. He had a disappointing year, and then he got hurt. Comes back in 2023 from the torn ACL on a less than talented roster. Last year, he elevates the team, plays well, and then doesn't play well down the stretch, turn the ball over. But we broke down those interceptions. A lot of them came out of desperation because of situations the defense had put them in. And so, do I believe? I think we're at the point now that we can say Kyler isn't necessarily a quarterback that elevates his teammates, but he isn't a dynamic playmaker, but can lead a winning team. And when you put the roster around him, he can win. And I think, honestly, I think I go into this year. This year feels a lot like 2021 in some ways. I'm not going to expect him to go 9-1 and then kind of, but if you look at Kyler's performance, because he led a very efficient offense both last year and the second half of 2023. What made him so great in 2021? What made him so great wasn't what he was doing. It was playing from ahead. The defense was playing top 10. They had a top 10 defense the first half of 2021. If this defense elevates again, guess what Kyler's able to do? He's able to play without stress. Like, he's able to play low leverage, and you're going to see him playing extremely high level, seeing that ceiling that we've seen before. And so it's not much. Like I always said, he's not a developing quarterback, and perhaps this is kind of like the year. This is the year for Kyler to prove it all, because now everything is in place. This is entering year 3. He was coming back from the ACL. Like, you can't help that. And he was on a bad team. He wasn't on the offense last year. Still pretty mediocre team. He plays well and then fades down the stretch. Now, this is kind of the year. This is the year. We saw it in the second, we saw it in the first 3 years, elevate. And then we're kind of again, elevate. And if he elevates again, we can see that ceiling. And while I don't think we're going to see him enter into the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes conversation, Joe Burrow conversation, this can be one of those years when he elevates himself into top 10 quarterback because of his play, because the talent's there. It's just now the caretaking, the everything around him is being taken care of. And I think that is a major difference.
But see, I always go back to the same thing, Jess, and I know people hate this, but like, did Joe Burrow have a statistically superior year to Kyler Murray? I think we would all say, obviously, there's not a question. But the question I have is, then why did they have the same record? Or, why did
exactly.
Like, so that to me, it's like people, at the end of the day, and I've seen Chiefs fans like, oh, Patrick Mahomes is, he's not the same guy. Look at his stats. Look at this. Look at that. And I'm like, whether it's the game, whatever it is, just whatever it is, people's ability to enjoy things is down. And
no one likes to be happy.
No, not at all. And that's the thing. It's like Chiefs fans, you've witnessed 3 Super Bowls. You have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. In his first 8 seasons, he's already one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and you're down on him. Like, literally every team in the NFL except maybe one would trade for Patrick Mahomes. But then you get the flip side too, where it's like, whether it's the Ravens, the Bills, or the Bengals, it's like those guys can do no wrong. It's like, well,
it can't be the Chiefs,
right? And
they can't be the Chiefs.
They have as many Super Bowls as us, so obviously they can do wrong. So that's the thing. Is like, I can't. Are there 6 guys, 7 guys that you take? Absolutely. Over Kyler? Absolutely. can you acquire them? That's the real question. Like, you can want in one hand and you know what in the other, and see what fills up first. But the reality is going to be like, if those guys are not accessible, then does it matter? And that's where I'm at with the whole situation. It's just like, could they improve? Absolutely. But how do they improve? Like, where does that come from? And what do they have to sacrifice in order to get that? And I do feel like they're coming to, you and I talked about this off the air, like, and something we can discuss as we move forward. Like, I do feel like this is the year where it's like, look, you either have to, or get off the pot at this point, right? Like, you can't just continue to be mediocre, because eventually you are just mediocre. And so you have to try something new, but I'm hoping that the rest of the team, as it improves and continues to get better, that you look at that and you go, oh, okay, so this is where they're at, and they're continuing to move forward, and they're continuing to be in the right spots as they improve and get better. And now you see them as as an NFC West contender, and then next year you're like, hey, they're an NFC contender, and that's the growth. And if it is just straight up like, hey, they can't win with Kyler, like they have to go somewhere else, they have the pieces in place where they can make a move and not sacrifice the growth or the construction of the franchise.
And with that, we will wrap up this edition of the Rise Up Sierra podcast of our Cardinals Talk on the episode 664. We'll be back again in the weeks to come. We've got division talk about. We've got opponent previews and more. That's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks. Welcome to Popcorn Psychology, the podcast where licensed therapists dive deep into your favorite movies. From trauma and grief to identity and attachment, we unpack it all through the lens of cinema. Whether you're a mental health professional or just a movie lover, join us every other week for a mix of clinical insight and pop culture fun.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you could go big time on a fancy water bottle with ultra titanium alloy metal. You're not sure why you need all that. I mean, it just holds water. But you're getting it anyway. Because if you're hiking near an active volcano and you accidentally drop the bottle into molten lava, your water will still be icy cold. Switch to Progressive and you could save big time. For water bottles. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
For listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms, so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise Up, Red Sea, Be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.
Rise up!